All right. Hello, everyone. Good day to you wherever you are in the world. As you can see on the bottom of the screen, my name's Ant Newman. I'm Director of Content here at Spectro Cloud, and I'm joined today by Chris Montalbano from GovSmart, Director of SLED. We are here to talk about a really important topic, not a new topic, but it's still very pressing. The ongoing VMware situation in the post-Broadcom world. We have a brand new white paper out authored by Chris, and we're here to talk to you about what public sector IT buyers should be thinking and doing here in 2026. Welcome to the call, Chris. Good to have you here. Let's start at the beginning. What's your role at GovSmart, and what brought you on this journey to you're covering this topic for us in this paper?
Yeah, so I'm the director of SLED here at GovSmart, so state, local education markets nationally. I joined in March. Prior to that, I was in a number of roles, leadership roles, with federal and state and local technology sales. What brought me to author this paper was a number of concerns discussed with either customers or potential customers of ours around the rising costs of hypervisors, particularly after the Broadcom acquisition of VMware, and then a lot of conversations on what to do about it.
Well, that's a great segue into what should they do about it. When you're having those conversations with customers, they get that renewal letter. Maybe they renewed for 3 years back when this all happened the first time round. Another renewal has come in. What does that letter normally say? Like, how big are the numbers we're talking here? And how do the IT leaders that you're talking to react? Like, what are their initial thoughts?
Well, if we take it back to, I'm going to think March 2025, I think that was the big hit, where there was this 72 core minimum purchase. So there were a lot of changes around licensing. It's interesting because that got pulled back about a month later. So I view that as seeing what the market could bear, for lack of a better term. And then there were various bundles that were forced because other products were eliminated from buying individually. Some of the increases I've heard up to 200%, but I mean when you get to double-digit increases and triple-digit increases, it doesn't matter because they're just so high.
Yeah, I mean that going back to some of the stuff you were saying there as examples, the end of perpetual licensing, the rebundling of the VCF and all those other portfolio elements, and the core minimum. If nothing else, it feels almost like an obfuscation tactic. Like you don't necessarily even know what you're buying anymore and exactly what the renewal like for like would be because the frames of reference have changed so much. Like, do you feel like this is almost a deliberate sales tactic?
Oh, yes, yeah. And even in the paper that I authored, I cover this briefly. I worked as a consultant for several years advising companies on how to move from perpetual to subscription-based or SaaS licensing. I began that journey, I think, in 2018, I believe. Yeah, when I wrote the first two SaaS offerings for a company I worked with. And it was always my my opinion to, if you're going to make that change, give the customers time, give them an off ramp, because if you don't, it comes as a shock. And then the other thing is there must be better value delivered. If there's not, then it's a sales tactic. Then that's something by management that they're putting to pull more revenue out of those customers.
Yeah, a classic Broadcom playbook, really. So you're one of those customers. You've just received that letter with a 200% increase. It has come as a shock, and you've decided this is a price we can't bear anymore. What are the options out there in the market for that agency CIO, at a broad level, that they can consider? And how do we map out what you would recommend as the most viable long-term path forward for those organizations?
So before getting into the options, I think it's important to understand um, the approach. Looking at what is really like a tier, a ready tier, community value validated tier, starting with some of your less critical environments first, getting a pilot out there, and also working with your internal IT, because we also have to understand there's going to be a transition in skills and skill sets that that we shouldn't ignore. Some of the options, you can move to Nutanix, you could work with KubeVirt and Spectro Cloud. Those are two. Obviously, we're talking today for a reason. I think Spectro Cloud has the best options here.
Makes sense. I mean, you brought up points there about the impact of change, and particularly when organizations are, they have large application estates. They might have been using VMware for 20 years. They've got all their certificates. They're comfortable in this environment. Um, we at Spectro Cloud, when we're talking to customers about this, we're always very cautious to start the discussions early, because if you're 1 month away from your renewal, there's no way you're going to be off VMware in that kind of time. Can you walk me through the sort of process, like regardless of which of those options you choose, what is a good path forward from like first conversation to freedom for a customer? Like how would you recommend they approach it?
So yeah, you're going to have to break it down into probably about four different phases. So think about the first phase as an assessment, looking at your environment, discovering all the gaps that you have for and then from there, you're likely going to move on to a pilot, which should take about a month.
Hmm.
Go through evaluations, see how things work. Also deploying the pilot on less critical or lower risk environments is what I would recommend. And then from there, you're going to have to do a validation phase, which is probably another 6 to 8 weeks. And then after you've worked out the kinks and so forth, then you're going to move into production and monitor it and get your people skilled up. That's probably going to take going to weeks. I would say that's probably going to hit your second, third months, and then you move on from there. So that phased approach, because people, like you said, people have been using VMware for 20 years. It's been a household name in technology. So it's my opinion where you should really like reduce the shock and layer it in.
Yeah, makes sense. Thinking about some of the alternatives, and you spoke about different tiers of applications, like you're ready or not. Um, what are the sort of criteria, and how broad are those tiers? Like, are we talking a case where the majority of applications can be moved to an alternative hypervisor platform or alternative platform, or is this something where you see organizations will still end up having a significant chunk on VMware for the foreseeable future? How does that sort of tiering break down for you?
I think it's less about the tiering and more about confidence within the organization. Um, and I think it's just human nature when people are used to using a certain technology that's been dominant in an industry for so long. I mean, we're talking about decades here. Um, it's more about having people that are open-minded, that understand that they have to do something. They have to try an alternative. That being said, what my research showed that about a third, well, maybe about 30% rather, of the environment is in that ready tier. So it's a decent start.
Okay.
Probably the community validated tier, that is much higher. That would be in the 60 something percentile.
Okay. Makes sense. So we've got a bunch of people listening to us today, SLED organizations that are in this position of having received a very unfavorable renewal. And they've heard you talk about the fact that there is a path they can follow and there are alternatives out there. What do you at GovSmart bring to those folks, and in your partnership with us, what do you think we bring to the table as a solution for those people listening right now?
Yeah, so one of the great things about GovSmart is that we look at the best solutions for the customer or the future customer. And it's one of the reasons why we have, I believe, about 1,500, 1,600 OEM vendors as partners. Now, sure, there's a much shorter list for the companies we do the majority of our work and partnership with. But getting that conversation started is most important. Where we could come in, we could do an assessment of your environment, and really work with you to get 1 to 2 different options that you could execute on. And like I said, we would start with a pilot approach and then move on from there. So part of the idea is to lower the risk here, to prove out the technology, and also to see how internal IT is doing with internal IT is adapting to those changes, how they're able to manage these new technologies and such.
Yeah, it's the people and process legs of the triangle. It's not just the technology, right?
Of course, yeah. Too many people miss that part, hence my reasons for stressing it. Yeah.
Indeed. Fantastic. Well, from our side here at Spectro Cloud, we've got an offer in this space. I'll hands up and admit that. And listening to you talk here, Chris, about the pilot approach and the sort of scaling up, we have a packaged offer called VM Liftoff Kit, which is fixed scope, fixed price, and gets you to outcomes in a fixed duration. So we've very much built that for that kind of pilot and experimentation phase of the migration process. You can find out more about that on our website if you're listening today. Chris, it's been an awesome pleasure talking to you today. I know that there's so much more we could discuss, and that's why you've written this amazing white paper. You can find that down below in the show notes. There will be a link for you to go and check out that full paper. It's extremely well researched, filled with stats, and lots of prescriptive best practices and step-by-step guides for you to follow in your VM migration journey. So, Chris, thank you so much for being with us here today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks to those of you at home watching.
Thanks, Ant. My pleasure as well.
Take care.
Take care.